This one will blow your mind. There's a narrative pushed by people on the left that the Obama administration represented a transformative shift towards a more transparent and ethical government, a shift that the US desperately needed. Obviously, that can't be further from the truth. Michelle Malkin even wrote a book exposing his administration's wrongdoings, and she went on The View to discuss this very topic. Needless to say, the host kept bashing her and tried to establish moral equivalencies with other Republican-led administrations, but Michelle wasn't having any of that and managed to show how a bunch of hypocrites they are. But before I delve deeper into it, watch the clips.
This weekend, getting through most of the book, you write faster than I can read at this point, but I want to talk about the title, and I want you to expand a little bit about it. You'd be hard-pressed, you say in this book, to find an area of the White House and the Obama administration that's not corrupt, correct?
That's right. I scoured from top to bottom. And, of course, a lot of people are already familiar with the botched nomination process. Everybody knows about tax cheat Tom Daschle, Bill Richardson, who was involved in a lot of pay-for-play scandals.
What botched nomination? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about Tom Daschle, the first HHS Secretary nominee who represented everything that is against hope and change. He's a revolving door lobbyist. He failed to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes on his private crony driver.
And that's not all. I'll just quote Alex Newman, who also wrote on the corruption of the Obama administrations, and he summed it up as follows, quote, "Lawless behavior, regular violations of the U.S. Constitution, unprecedented secrecy, and abuse of so-called executive privilege to protect his senior officials all contributed to Obama's designation as one of the most crooked politicians in the Capitol today." By the way, do subscribe for more discussions like this. The major challenge of his first presidential term was the 2008 financial meltdown, and the brilliant solution was massive bailouts for the banks responsible for the crisis, while offering little to struggling homeowners who were victims of these banks' reckless practices. This was a contradiction to the campaign messages of putting the people's interests first. Another broken campaign promise was transparency. The administration prosecuted whistleblowers under the Espionage Act more than all previous administrations combined, contradicting Obama's pledge to protect whistleblowers and start a new era of open government. Even as biased as they are, The Guardian had to report on this, saying, quote, "On his watch, there have been 8 prosecutors under the 1917 Espionage Act, more than double those under all previous presidents combined." Obama also used the IRS to target political opponents. This involves scrutinizing conservative groups' tax exemption status more stringently, which many viewed as politically motivated abuse of power. The funny thing is the IRS had to apologize later due to the amount of lawsuits it had to fight. Despite all this, Joy Behar had the audacity to engage in whataboutism. Just watch the next clip for yourself.
People in your group, Republicans and
My group.
right-wingers.
Do you want like I'm an alien in my world?
Conservative, but it's a different group of
criticism.
That's all. But I mean, do you think that a lot of Republicans like yourself want to move on from the Bush administration because there's so much corruption in that 8 years?
Well, you don't want to move on.
That is all. I don't, because I want to see.
Yeah, that's right.
First you have to get the pus out of the sore before it will heal.
Again,
let me respond to Joy first, and then I would love to get to the friendly side of the aisle here.
I'm being friendly.
The point is that the only substantive response to the book so far has been moral equivalence. What about Bush? What about Bush? What about Bush? Yeah. What about Michelle Obama? What about Joe Biden, who has traded on his crony name for the past 30 years, who represented, again, the antithesis of hope and change?
That's a typical response from a lefty, and they do it all the time when confronted with accusations of corruption. They deflect criticism by comparing their unethical actions with actions taken by previous administrations, particularly those led by Republicans. The aim is to suggest that, quote, everyone does it, thereby diminishing the severity or singularity of the accusations against them. The moral equivalence fallacy in these arguments undermines genuine accountability by implying that because previous leaders engaged in questionable or unethical behaviors, now it is acceptable or less problematic when done by subsequent administrations. This line of reasoning fails to hold leaders to a consistent ethical standard, and instead it lowers the bar for conduct, excusing corruption or misconduct based on precedent. This approach is evident in discussions about various controversial issues that arose during Obama's tenure. For instance, when the Obama administration faced scrutiny over its handling of the attack on the U.S. diplomatic compound in Libya in 2012, which resulted in the death of the U.S. ambassador and 3 other American people, questioned the security preparations and the subsequent narrative about the cause of the attack. In defense, supporters of the administration pointed to previous attacks on U.S. embassies and consulates during the British administration, such as the 2004 consulate bombing in Jeddah and the 2006 embassy attack in Syria. They argued that since such incidents also occurred under Republican leadership without similar outrage or condemnation, the intense scrutiny of the Obama administration was unjustified or politically motivated.
What I'm interested in, though, is you say that you believe that this administration is more corrupt than other presidencies, and I wondered if you could explain.
I actually don't say that in the book. What I say is that you have to measure.
Okay, I just want to show you this so you know what side of the aisle. We're all on the same side of the aisle. See what it says right there? I didn't write that.
Right. Well, whoever wrote that did not read the book.
Okay.
What I said was that you have to measure this administration. That's not a quote in the book. You can't find it.
No,
Show
that's
me
what
where
I'm
it says
saying.
that.
I just said I didn't make this up. This was just good.
Go ahead. What I'm saying, Whoopi, is that you have to measure this administration, the principal, foremost agent of everything fresh and clean, hope and change. Isn't that what we were sold this last campaign? And he rode in on a horse, a white horse, taller than any other in recent memory. And like you can talk to any young person who voted for Obama, they thought they were going to get something fresh and clean. We got Tom Daschle, we got Bill Richardson, we got Joe Biden.
Whoopi thought she was being clever by putting words in Michelle's mouth, but her response was priceless. And that's something they always do, particularly in heated political debates, where they selectively interpret and rephrase statements made by political opponents to align with the ideological points they try to shove our way. You see, despite campaign promises of change and a more accountable government, Obama steeped in the traditional Washington, quote, business as usual, rather than the heralded clean break from past practices. These practices also continued under the Biden presidency, where nepotism and cronyism is even worse than it was under Obama. Even Trump noticed this and posed this question in the latest presidential debate.
He doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show. The most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody?
This flew under the radar for so many people, and the answer to that question is simple: nepotism and cronyism. While it is common for presidents to appoint allies to important roles, the extent to which these appointments are made based on merit versus loyalty can be contentious. Biden has installed many individuals who are definitely not the most qualified for their respective positions, but they're rather rewarded for their loyalty and financial contributions to this political campaign, although he campaigned on not letting that happen, saying, quote, I'm going to appoint the best people possible, and nobody, in fact, will be appointed by me based on anything they contributed, which turned out to be an obvious lie. Even Trump is guilty of this, as he hired his daughter and son-in-law as senior advisors during his presidency. I think it's obvious that this issue is bipartisan in nature, but it is also much more severe on the left. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we'll be able to see the administration where there's zero nepotism? Let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below.